Welcome to Radiant Guidance. I'm going to be doing the astrology for September 2023. My name is Molly. I utilize both the traditional Western and Eastern systems of astrology. I believe all true maps must converge. And so, as a harmonic art, astrology is really looking at the planetary configurations, which remain the same regardless of what sign system you're using. And by understanding this harmonic, we can really tap into the energies afoot, take advantage of what I call days of harmony, or they're kind of like days of opportunity, and be wary of the more days of intensity or days where the configurations are a little more harsh to deal with. So it's a very useful practical tool for planning and understanding the themes emerging and how you can flow with the energies. As always, do not replace any of my insight for your own intuition or your own medical guidance, etc. Without further ado, let's go over September. So, in terms of planetary motion, those of you who follow astrology probably know that many planets, a record number of planets, have been retrograde. Though planets in red will remain retrograde through the month of September. Jupiter is joining the party on September 4th. And this is a period where the planets are sleeping. So the themes that those planets represent are areas of life where we're going more inward with and we're reflecting on. Venus has been retrograde but turns direct on the 3rd. And Venus represents beauty, relationships, and our connection to our values. And it could be the last 40 days or so, it's been a deep dive into really reconsidering what relationship is to us, how we handle our money. It might have been a time of a little economic strain because Venus has been squaring Uranus, which is not a stable aspect. And unfortunately to say, I think it's going to get less stable come January when Uranus also turns direct. So they were in a square but kind of sleeping. So I think we'll feel more of that financial instability come January, the end of January. But now that Venus is turning direct, something we can turn our focus towards is settling debt. In the Vedic systems, they believe that the couple days before and the couple days after the Venus retrograde, meaning it's going into direct motion, are a great time to settle any debts. So if you have a credit card bill that you've been kind of procrastinating paying off, but you have the means to, I would say go ahead and do it. Just start the month with that clean slate. I personally have never felt motivated to do this, but created a budget for myself in the last few days for the month of September to really pay attention to where my money goes and how it flows. And it was really empowering, and it made me feel like I could actually open myself to receiving more. Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, they're still going to be retrograde, but Mercury, luckily, turns direct on the 15th of December. So any business dealings that you feel have been lagging, there's still a lot of planets retrograde, but Mercury is the main one, the main player that has to do with miscommunications or delays in terms of business and settling deals, selling things, contracts, anything of that nature. So you'll get a little push ahead, and if you've been trying to start something up and it's been really delayed, come mid-September, you're going to be seeing more momentum. Jupiter is joining this retrograde party starting September 4th. Jupiter is the planet of higher knowledge and wisdom. It's also a greater benefic in astrology. So when Jupiter goes retrograde, it actually kind of enhances some of his benefic qualities, particularly for those of you who have any planetary placements within the orb that Jupiter will be in by conjunction or even trine. So if you have any planetary placements around 15 degrees of Taurus, that's the degree it's stationing retrograde around, you might notice that you get a little boost of luck or insight or support. It's actually a very nice retrograde station to have on your chart. So let's move on to the key dates of the month. So we have Venus going direct on the 3rd. The 4th is Jupiter turning retrograde. On the 14th is the new moon. It's a kind of kooky new moon. It's definitely some interesting energy, but I consider it to be a very harmonious day. And I'll explain more why I have an alien in a crown there, but there's some interesting stuff going on. I don't know if you guys have known, but Jupiter has been conjoining Uranus. And this is an aspect that we'll see throughout September. And I think it has a lot to do with this like revelation of alien information and this like disclosure that's kind of happening. It's kind of a reawakening and a rebirthing aspect, Jupiter with Uranus. It's the planet of higher wisdom and philosophy conjoining the revolutionary and very innovative and progressive and unexpected planet of Uranus. So this is a time where we're going to see more like kind of kooky things being revealed, and things that were maybe stuff we just thought about in science fiction are definitely becoming part of the everyday. And Uranus has a lot to do with uh, rebellion as well. So there can be more feeling of people wanting to kind of be more contrarian, if that makes sense. Overall, I think it's a positive thing. I think the Jupiter conjoining with Uranus, yes, doesn't mean there can be more unexpected earth changing events, of course, but it also means that there's like a great awakening taking place because we have the collective higher mind really tuning into this very futuristic oriented energy of Uranus, the streams of information that come from places like aliens. So, on a collective level, more people are kind of tapping into the non traditional awareness methods available to them. And not necessarily relying on mainstream news for this, but maybe their own channels and their own source. So, it's a very like psychic awareness activation kind of aspect. And this new moon really emphasizes it because it'll be trining the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. And there's a few other very harmonious aspects happening that day, which I'll talk about when we get to it. On September 15th, Mercury is direct. So yeah, any of those business dealings that have been on hold, you'll see some momentum in. If you've been waiting to make a big purchase, now that Venus and Mercury will be direct by the 15th, go for it. It's not gonna it'll have more long-lasting results. You know, when you sign a lease when Mercury is direct, it might be short-term or temporary, but or sorry, when it's retrograde, it might be short-term or temporary. When Mercury is direct, you can have the more long-lasting sustainable results without too much delay. On the 22nd, I really like this day, by the way, and I'll talk about it on my days of harmony, but the sun enters Libra. And on the 29th, we have this beautiful full moon, and the moon will be conjoining Neptune and trining Venus. It's a really nice energy, actually. So, what are the days of intensity? I'm not a doom and gloom astrologer. Days of intensity are just where the harmonics of the day, it's like heavy metal versus maybe a beautiful piece of Beethoven. It's like a little more harsh, the resonance of the day. And this can be because there's the luminary, like the moon, in hard aspect to malefic planets. There can be accident prone days. I'm very careful of what I say accident alert about, but the ones this month are like definitely accident alert. That would be the 19th and the 20th. So if you're listening to this, you can just jot this down if you have a planner, but I'll just list the days and then I'll go through why. So September 2nd, September 8th and 9th, September 16th and 17th, September 19th and 20th, September 24th, and September 26th are all days of intensity. Sometimes we can work with this energy. Sometimes we want that intensity, right? But depending on what you're planning, it's usually a little more obstacles if you're trying to do it on a day of intensity, particularly with so many planets retrograde. So on the 2nd, it's a day of intensity because we got moon squaring Pluto. On the 8th and the 9th, we have moon opposite Pluto, also squaring Mars. So it's what we call like a three-way square, a T-square. On September 16th and 17th, we've got Moon conjunct Mars, where to me the Moon Mars days are and tensions are high. People are more irritable. It can also be where people are more impulsive. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you work in sales. But the moon's also squaring Pluto on those days as well. On the 19th and 20th, this is my accident alert. This is the day that you do not want to go scuba diving. You don't want to go jump from an airplane or do anything that's not like routine. And even if you're doing your routine things, be careful, be more cautious, be more mindful on the 19th and the 20th of the month. Why? Well, the moon is opposite Uranus, the planet of like unexpected, it's an accident prone planet. And we also have it squaring Saturn and Mercury. Mercury has a lot to do with communication, transportation, and squaring Saturn delays, right? So there's this like frenetic energy and this stop energy. So to me, it kind of adds up to it's very accident prone. The other accident prone days, just generically speaking, I didn't notice any this month, but is when you have, even in your personal transits, any hard aspect between Mars and Uranus tend to be very accident heavy days. So that being said, let's continue on. The next day of intensity would be September 24th, where we have Moon conjoining Pluto. And then we've got the 26th, Moon's conjunct Saturn. And then Mars is also squaring Pluto. So it's kind of a double whammy of intensity. So the most intense, let's say, of the days of intensity are the 19th, 20th, and 26th. The rest are intense, but maybe not as noteworthy, if that makes sense. Let's go forward. There's actually a lot of harmonious days in September. I really like it. It's very exciting. There's a lot of exciting things to look forward to. We have got the moon conjunct Jupiter and Uranus trining Pluto and the sun on September 4th. This is also right after Venus goes direct. So that could be a nice day for socializing. Jupiter with Uranus and the moon, that's just going to feel like a very like expansive and social day. On the 5th, we have the moon trining Mars and the moon sextiling Venus. And this is a really nice energizing kind of aspect. It's very momentum forward aspect. So barring the fact that Mercury still will be retrograde on the 5th, I like that day for movement, a purification, a cleaning out, a kind of starting something. Like I said, being aware that Mercury is retrograde, but yeah, starting a project you wanted to do and maybe something less formal, you know what I mean? Like an art project you've been wanting to do, or just taking that like initiative towards something. It'll feel like you get a nice boost of energy. It's happening in the nakshatra of, let me check my notes here. Oh, Kritika, which has a lot to do with like cutting through, piercing through to the truth of something. So that day just has that little bit of energy as well. September 11th is a very sensual day. It's a very kind of unexpected, but like there's a sexy energy of the day. The moon is conjoining Uranus and sextiling Mars. So it's a very heightened sexual energy because the moon is in the nakshatra of Ashlesha, which is the seductress nakshatra, and it has a lot to do with seduction, but also healing. So there's this kind of sensual healing energy of September 11th this month. The moon is also conjoining Lilith, dark moon Lilith, which is that like dark feminine energy. So this September 11th day would be a really good day for like a performance of some kind, some sort of like anything that has to do with like sensuality and pleasure and doing things that are kind of like taboo. It kind of has that little like sexy taboo energy to that day. On the 14th, we have the new moon trining Jupiter and Uranus, and it is happening around 6 p.m. Pacific time. Now, it's in the nakshatra Maga, which is a very regal part of the zodiac. Nakshatra means section of the sky. And so these are the Vedic areas of the sky that correspond to the various constellations. And this was considered like a power position, Maga Nakshatra. And so it has a lot to do with like grand events and grand promotions, ceremonies, um, performances, even, and also things like out of body experiences and near death experiences. And I think that's kind of emphasized with this trine to the Jupiter Uranus conjunction that I was kind of pointing to earlier, that this new moon day can be very mystical because the new moons in general are where the veil is a little bit thinner, but particularly because it's happening in this Maga Nakshatra, like you might really be able to like tap into the other side. It's maybe not, I mean, depending on depending on your take, if you're into like altered state experiences, maybe it is a time that you want to flow into that, but you might feel that anyway, not being on any sort of mind altering whatever it is. And I'm talking even things like cacao are mind altering, but it's a time where you might just feel really tapped into the mystical. And it's a really good day to do something like a ceremony, anything where you're honoring your ancestors, or promotions, like I said. It's kind of an interesting thing too. On the 22nd, we have Moon trining Jupiter, Uranus, and Mercury. This is a very like innovative and communicative energy. This would be a good day to either problem solve, give a presentation if you do lectures or you have to speak in public. This would be a really good day for that, September 22nd. We'll have Mercury fully direct by then. So if you have an important meeting, presentation, anything like that, it's a really good day for it. The 25th, we've got Mercury trining Jupiter and Uranus. And Mercury is actually, or the moon, sorry, is conjunct Chiron, which is the wounded healer. And it has a lot to do with transmuting pain into something beautiful, something that's very cleansing and healing. So there's this part of the 25th that I feel like makes it a good day for any sort of healing treatment or medical treatment. Like I said earlier, don't replace this with your own intuition or your own kind of guidance that you have around those things. But the 25th is a really harmonious day. The moon is also trining Mars and the sun. And then we've got Mercury trining Jupiter and Uranus. And on the 29th, we've got the moon conjunct Neptune trining Mars. This is a very mystical day too. Whenever there's moon Neptune, it's the psychic energy is heightened, the creative energy is heightened. And with that boost from Mars, it's like having the vision and following it through. So I like it for visionary kind of energies. So this was my breakdown of the month of September. If you guys would like personal readings, you know how to reach me. My website is Radiant Guidance. I work with individuals, couples, and I also teach astrology on various topics. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm wishing you a beautiful month of September.